What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have a very special guest all the way from the Big Apple. That's right, NYC. This guy's a 12-time Ironman, 2-time Kona World Championship finisher, author, and amazing coach. Guys, please help us welcome the one and only John Joseph. What's up,
What's
brother?
up? I'm liking the 808 kick on the intro. That was deep.
Yeah.
Woo! I was bopping. Boom, boom, boom.
We got the hook up here, man. We're ready to go.
I love it.
We're not fucking around.
That's right.
I see that.
So how you been, man? How's everything
good,
going
man.
for you?
Holding it down, just New York's been crazy in the last year. It's nothing I haven't seen before. I mean, I ran the streets in the 70s, so if you can get through that, you could get through anything.
I was watching Gangs in New York the other day, and I for the first time in a long time, I was like, oh, fuck, like, maybe New York needs to go back to that where people are, like, battling in the streets with hatchets. And
that was a little before my time, but there's another great book called The Gangs of the Lower East Side by Cochise and Clayton Patterson. So if you want to see, the shit that was going on down here in the 70s and 80s, it was pretty buck wild.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Oh, for sure.
I kind of wish that I either lived in New York City then or like lived down here then, because it would make me a lot harder than I am now. I feel like people would respect me.
Yeah, Miami was rough back in the 80s.
Oh, I went to South Beach in 1981, man, and it was like, those little Scarface hotels, motels. I was like, yeah.
Some of them are still kicking around. Yeah.
Yes, there's a few. No, my dad would tell me stories all the time. He was just crazy shit. I'm like, damn.
Well, if you saw that documentary, Cocaine Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's great. Billy Corbin. He's done a ton of like Miami-based like documentaries. He did the 30 for 30 on the U as well. I don't know if you've seen that on the University of Miami football. Oh, you got to watch that. It's like ESPN really 30 for 30 on like the heyday of the Miami Hurricanes, and he did that as well. Absolutely great. He did that one. Was it Screwball? The one about A-Rod.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that. That's pretty funny as well.
Didn't see that
he
either.
did like a mockumentary almost, but it's actually like very historically relevant about like the whole Alex Rodriguez steroid controversy.
Oh, okay.
And what was the guy's name? Tony Bosch, who's like based in here, is basically just like a has-been nobody faker who's like selling steroids to all these people.
Oh, you know what? I saw a part of that guy. That name sounded familiar.
So the guy that did Cocaine Cowboys for the Screwball movie, he like also used kids like to play like Alex Rodriguez. So he'd do like flashbacks of what the scenes were, but it'd be like Alex Rodriguez as like some like 9-year-old kid would be playing him like going up to bed and like juicing himself up.
Oh,
it's like pretty
genius, man.
it's absolutely great. The dude's hilarious. And now Billy Corbin just spends all his time like trashing Miami politicians, which I'm not against. So
yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
So now I gotta ask before we continue on, what was the craziest thing you saw during that time back in the 70s, 80s in New York?
One of the craziest things was I used to sell drugs at Madison Square Garden. So after the shows, this was in 77, we would go to this little shithole bar and count our money and get some food. The Blarney Castle, which is still there to this day. So I went in there and I got some food. I ordered food and I got, I was drinking and shit. I'm like 15 years old. And I go to the bathroom to take a piss. And I'm at the urinal and I hear this dude in the toilet stall behind me. And he's like grunting and, clearly has diarrhea. And I was like, oh yeah, that food in here. And he didn't say nothing. And then like 30 seconds later, the door pushes open and this jacked fucking Puerto Rican guy comes in holding a straight razor and stands behind me. And I was like, yo, and I turn around and he goes like this and puts his finger up like, shh. And I was like fucking pissing on myself. But he pointed to the toilet stall. He walks over there, kicks the door open. There's a black dude on the bowl, and he grabs him by the afro and just starts slicing his face and cuts his jugular vein right in front of me. And the blood is just squirting the fuck out. And then he turns around and walks back to me, and I was like, he was between me and the door to get out. And I was just petrified. I'm like, I'm the only motherfucker that's seen this guy just kill this guy. And he just put his finger up again like that and dropped the fucking blade and walked out. And that,
holy fuck.
Nobody ever spoke a word, but it was one of the top crazy things I saw. I mean,
how'd you get out of that?
He just walked out.
And how about you? Like, what? You just walked out and just left? Too,
I got the fuck out of there.
Yeah, you're gonna hang out in that bed. You're gonna be like, listen, I'm gonna grab a newspaper. I'm gonna be here for a while.
You know what? Bring me my food to the bedroom, guys.
Oh, damn.
No,
I thought that story was going a little different direction. I thought you were gonna talk about that 4 a.m. halal street food. I was gonna be like, yeah, that'll get
stay
you
away from Muhammad's mystery meat.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'll definitely make you grunt in a bathroom at 4 a.m. That'll get you going.
Nah, but you know, it was a lot of that. Like, I saw another dude get shot. I mean, you know, and fucking shot in the fucking head. And
yeah, like, we've been having a lot of problems like that here now.
Recently,
that was the type of shit that was going on, you know, and I was in the middle of it. I was a kid out on the streets. I ran away from a boys' home, so I grew up institutionalized. So when I hit 1976, I started catching cases, you know. I sold to undercovers. I was 14, and then I broke into a supermarket. I kept running away, and then they would take me back to the home. And then finally, January 77, I went onto the streets. I took acid with this dude who was in St. John's Home for Boys with me. And his parents, his mother's boyfriend, set him on fire when he was a kid. Like, because he was an alcoholic, and the kid woke him up playing. So we dragged him to the back. He was half Puerto Rican and Irish. And his father, the mother's boyfriend, dragged him to the toilet, to the bathroom, and put lighter fluid on him in the tub and set him on fire. So the dude was burnt, like scar tissue from the neck down, like, you know, thick. But he was a fucking animal. He looked like the Thing. He was like 5'10", hands the size of cinder blocks, and he would just snap and just fucking beat people down like you would. I mean, we'd be huffing glue and all this shit. And then I took acid with him, and he had a bad trip and tried to murder me with a hunting knife. I was able to get away. I hit him with a chair, but because of I was waiting to go to court already, they said if the next shit I do, I'm going to go to Spofford. So I split. And that's when I went onto the streets. It was like January 77. And that's when the whole real fun started, you know, like the real crazy shit. I was a heroin mule for these junkies that gave me a place to live in like this fucked up, decrepit bungalow that they had down in the 90s. The Ramones were hanging out there, like 116.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was just wild. It was wild times, you know?
So how do you go from that lifestyle, which is, you know, crazy in its own sense, to, you know, becoming this competitive endurance athlete that you've really become?
I guess I would say, like, from this extreme to that.
I mean,
extreme.
well, you know, what a great transformation.
I got incarcerated in 1978, and I did 2 years. I went to Spofford, which I was the only white boy in Spofford. I was in Mike Tyson. You know, he wasn't there at the same time as me. I'm a little older than him, but I'm 59 this year. But I was the only white dude in Spofford, so I had a target on me the minute I got there. The 5%ers had just, they were the violent wing of the Nation of Islam. So everybody that was white was a white devil. Roots was on TV. So, like, you know, motherfuckers were like, oh, Kunta Kinte, huh, motherfucker? Like, so,
wow.
You know, I went in lockup at 130 pounds, and they tell you, yo, you got to get your weight up. So I put on 35 pounds of muscle. I boxed. I worked out every fucking day. But I still had you know, the issues from my childhood. We were severely abused in one foster home, me and my brothers, for 6 years. I never confronted that. I just pushed it in, you know, in the back of my subconscious. I didn't ever think about it, but that produced like a lot of anger, you know, and that's how it was on the streets. If anybody fucked with me, I would hit him in the head with a pipe or stab him in the face with a bottle, whatever. I mean, I got shot. I got beat down with baseball bats. It just, that was the world. And then what I talk about in coaching is discipline. How we need to have, that's my whole thing. You have to be disciplined. That creates habits, and the habits create routines. That's becomes, you know, who we are. So when I was locked up, I had a very stringent program because they took me to, they took us, when I went upstate, I did 3 months, just under 3 months in Spofford, and then I got sent upstate.
Auburn? Did you go to Auburn?
Huh? No, I was in Lincolndale. It was like attempted murder on down.
Okay.
Everybody, the other kids that murdered people got sent to Goshen Annex, Elmira, worse places. But
yeah, I know Elmira.
You know, they took me to Rolway State Prison for that scared straight shit. We was the first ones to ever walk foot in there, and then they took us to Fishkill maximum security. Another, you know, it was that whole program. And that's what they said. You got to work your program while you're locked up, take advantage of everything. I mean, I tried to do the best I could, but when I went back out onto the streets, I went back to what I knew, which was selling drugs and being a criminal. And then they caught up with me again. And then they said, we're going to offer you could go in the Navy for 4 years, or, you know, or you're going to get locked up for 4 to 6. So my mom was dating a Navy recruiter at the time. And he said, look, I can get your whole shit exonerated. You're still under 18 while you did this. And they didn't catch you for a sale. They caught you for possession with intent. So I chose the Navy. And I went in on the buddy program in 1980, January 3rd, with my brother, who was also incarcerated and got out. And we shipped out of Fort Hamilton to go to Great Lakes. You catch a military hop flight. And my brother goes, yo, I know where they sell dust 2 blocks from here. So we went and bought 5 bags of angel dust. And I went to boot camp. I never even been on a plane. And I went to, I went to boot camp high on dust.
Jesus.
And I excelled in boot camp.
On the dust, or on the dust because of the dust, or you're amped up?
Like after, like all the shit you see in the movies with the cliche shit of them waking you up with garbage cans and fucking.
Oh, that shit's real.
They did all that shit the first day that we showed up. They bring you into Great Lakes. It's out in the middle of nowhere and outside of Chicago. They bring you in at night to disorient you, like, so that, you know, you don't know where the fuck you are. Mm-hmm. And then, like, the morning they threw fireworks and banged garbage can lids. Get the fuck. And I was like laying in the bed. I'm like, where the fuck am I? Like, I just came down off dust, and he flipped the rack over on me. I was on the top bunk. So I got out just in time. But I tried to excel in boot camp. I became the physical training petty officer because I was in shape when I was locked up. And, I just kept going from there, and then they shipped me out to Norfolk, and I just started my nefarious ways. I was smuggling and all this shit, and I caught a case from the civilians in Norfolk. I sold to undercovers. So then I was looking at...
While you were in the Navy.
Yeah. I was smuggling on my ship drugs and, you know, all kinds of shit, and I was selling drugs in Norfolk. So I got an apartment off the base. I had like the hottest girl, fucking going to all the punk rock shows, crazy, fighting them rednecks and shit in Norfolk. Just, I was the only punk rocker on the whole Norfolk Naval Base Station on Hampton Boulevard.
So you just turned.
And they were like, this motherfuckers. I was wearing Sex Pistols shirts, like just crazy shit. And
they're listening to probably Tom Petty and some fucking Waylon Jennings.
Yeah, that all that bullshit, rednecks, and so I had a pre-com unit, which is pre-commissioned. My ship was being built in Newport News, so I had about 6 months of shore duty. And then when the ship got commissioned and we started traveling, that's when I started smuggling and selling drugs. And like I said, I caught a case. I was facing time. So they restricted me to the ship, and like it was fucked up. And I beat this dude down on my ship while we were underway that kept fucking with me. And then I had a medical condition. They had to medevac me off the ship from like being in a secure I was locked up on the ship. And then they medevaced me back to Puerto Rico, but this was 1980, so they forgot to send with my orders that I'm supposed to be locked up. And they gave me orders to go back to Norfolk, and I did, and then I just split.
Wow.
But so that was an accident.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was I got a serious infection from my teeth being pulled, my wisdoms, and I had like 103, 104 fever. They couldn't treat me on the ship, so they had to medevac me. My ship had a helo deck in the back, so they fucking flew out a helo from Roosevelt Roads to get me and took me back to Roosevelt Roads.
And then they forgot to say to put you in prison, is what you said.
Yeah, I was supposed to be handcuffed to the bed, but like they never told them like, yo, this dude's a prisoner. Like, and then they cut me my orders and gave me checks. I was hanging out in Puerto Rico for like
not bad,
chilling. I went out like with all these like Marine dudes and just crazy shit.
Yeah,
and
back then the Marines were over on Culebra, and I know like the Air Force was in Aguadilla there.
This guy's
well, they had the amphibious
moved.
They had the amphibious people down in Norfolk too. So the Gator Fleet. So I was like hanging with like crazy dudes down there, like, and taking acid. We went out to this like bar in the fucking jungle and like got in a bar fight against all these locals. And then like we fucked them up, and we were like going back to the base, and a whole mob of dudes with machetes came after us and chased us back to the base. And like the Marines had to like fire warning shots. I was just, it was just, you think you're indestructible when you're a kid like that, and I was still like 18. So
how'd you get out from Puerto Rico, and then how'd you start everything that you're doing now?
Okay, well, what happened was from Puerto Rico, they said, you're going back to Norfolk, you're going to go to Nimitz Hall, which is transient personnel unit, right? Waiting for your ship to come back. So they gave me my ID. I got back to Norfolk. I had my ID. They cut me my checks, and I was just chilling. And then like a month later, I was friends with like one of the first class petty officers. Was like, hey, my real name's McGowan, John Joseph McGowan. They go, McGowan, your ship sent a telegraph, like they're pulling in tomorrow and they're coming to get you, like wink, wink. So I split the next fucking morning, and I stayed in Norfolk for a little while, and then I went up to D.C. I was staying at Henry Rollins' house and Ian Mackay from Minor Threat. Henry Rollins, Black Flag, and all that. Mm-hmm. And then after like a week there of eating Henry's food, he's like, you got to get the fuck out, man. I like you. You're my boy, but it's time to go. And then this band called The Undead was playing in D.C., and they were from New York, so they gave me a ride back to New York. And I had met the Bad Brains previously, and I had this real spiritual crazy talk with HR. I sold their manager acid because I was selling drugs at the Taj Mahal. And then first person I see when I get out of the van on Avenue A in Alphabet City was HR standing in the doorway of 171A. And that's when like all the turn in my life really happened from there, because this gang that was the biggest drug gang on the Lower East Side and had one of the biggest profitable drug spots in the U.S. at the time.
Yeah, you don't fuck with Alphabet City.
Well, they had their shit right next door to the Bad Brain Studio, 171A, and they were throwing concerts in there, and the drug crew didn't like it because it brought noise and people, and they were trying to keep shit on the DL. So they came in one night to a Bad Brains gig and started slapping everybody around and pulling knives, and nobody was doing shit. So I went up to the fucking owner of the studio, J. Lee, and I go, yo, let's fuck these dudes up. And he's like, yo, don't fuck with them. They kill people for a living. They do contract killings. They're a drug gang. And I was like, pfft. The Beastie Boys were there, fucking dude. It was like, and nobody would stand up to these dudes. So homeboy went to stab me in the stomach. This, like, one of the leaders, his name was Crazy Eddie. And I blocked it, and I go, yo, if you do that shit again, I'm going to fuck you up. And he, like, laughed and walked away. And then Luckily. They shut the gig down. Everybody went outside, and he walked up to me and tried to stab me. And I just sidestepped it. I hit him with a fucking elbow, and just like a 3-piece, he went down. I banged his head off the curb. So I ended up getting in a fight against these guys, 4 of them with knives, and I had a chain, and it was like a real street fight in the middle of Avenue A. And I ended up getting stabbed in the shoulder, but I made it back inside the studio when I lost the chain. And I had to split out the back, but they put a KOS on me, which is kill on sight. I couldn't come down there. And then I finally just went and faced them. I was like, all right, let's do it, motherfuckers. And then they like pulled out guns and were going to take me to the building up the block. And that's when the Bad Brains came out there, and they're Rastafarian black dudes. So they was able to squash it. And then Eddie was like, yo, you're the only motherfucker that got balls out of this whole, all these punk rockers that come here. And he's like, yo, everything's squashed. And I had to make my bones, but then the Bad Brains let me move into the studio, work for them, be a roadie. I started taking up plant-based. HR, the singer, was an athlete. So I started, running a lot. I went on tour. I started music, started the Cro-Mags in 81. And then another band, Blood Clot, as we went on tour with the Bad Brains. And I went plant-based, and that's 1981, before it was trendy. And then I started training in martial arts, and the only job I could get when I came off the road was a bike messenger, because they didn't ask for your social security number. That's how they catch you. I was AWOL for 15 years, and I'm on MTV and all kinds of shit. Like, I assumed somebody else's identity. That's how I got around. But it was, I became a monk for 2 years, 82 to 84.
Here in the States, where were you?
Yeah, I was in Hawaii. I was a Hare Krishna monk for 2 years.
And how do you go to become a monk? Like, how can you take us through like that? What made you decide to become a monk, and how do you become a monk? The Bad Brains were able to get me a job at this health food store in 81 called Prana Foods, and they were connected to the Integral Yoga Institute, Swami Satchidananda. So I was going over there and learning the science of raw foods from the Hippocrates Health Center people, Ann Wigmore, Victorious Kovinskis, and learning how to cook and learning about raw foods and healing the body and doing yoga. And then the drummer from this famous punk rock band called The Dots, who later was the drummer for that band, The Unsane, before he had a motorcycle accident. We started talking philosophy, and he gave me one of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's books, The Science of Self-Realization. And I sat and read that thing in like 2 days, and I was like, yo, this is deep. He's like, well, they have a morning sadhana program. You could go up to the ashram, and it's like chanting and all this stuff. So I went up there, and it just was like the spiritual world, man. Out of all the chaos I came from
foster homes, the streets, lockups, crazy drug shit.
The shit.
This was like
literally the shit. Yeah. You're in the
dude,
fucking
it
shit.
Was just
You've experienced it all.
I mean, you talk about dualities. Like these people were meditating and chanting and like the incense and like the colors of the like.
So how did you react to that at first? It must have been, you know, a completely eye-opening experience.
Like I still get goosebumps. Like the hair on my neck fucking stood on end. I was just like, it's the most beautiful thing. They do the Samsara prayers in the morning. Did it feel weird for you, like coming from such a hard environment to something that is, you know, a little more on the softer side? In with the Bad Brains, and I was touring, and like when you went on the road with them, man, like the most amazing people surrounded themselves around the Bad Brains, and I don't want anyone to think the Bad Brains were not. When you hear punk rock, you think fucking Green Day and all that.
I don't think Green Day. I think maybe our younger siblings might think of Green Day.
That's poser shit. If you go
Sum 41.
Bad Brains, 1982 CBGB's full set, you'll see why they are the fucking godfathers of the hardcore punk scene.
I'm gonna check them out.
I'm gonna talk to my dad.
I mean, dude, everybody got influenced by them. You name it. If you say Bad Brains, to even Metallica, they're like, we're not worthy, because the Bad Brains are the fucking dons of the whole shit. So when I saw that, it just affected me on a different level. I was like, I got to know what these dudes are into. The singer would do backflips and land right on the note. Boom, bam, and fucking like just the most insane energy. And I saw Zeppelin in 77, I saw Sabbath, Yes, the Stones. I went to all the concerts selling drugs, selling beat drugs. I used to sell fake acid. That was fun. So
handing people some business cards.
Yeah. But it's funny. I talk about the whole shit. I got a memoir, The Evolution of a Cro-Magnon. But
I'll have to get that.
Yeah, having that experience. I was already starting to calm down because I stopped doing drugs and I stopped drinking. And I stopped eating meat. So I was still fighting, but the tendency to always be angry and like, you know, walk around like, you know, like you got a fucking razor blade in your shoe. that kind of, and I started meditating and chanting and doing yoga. So I found that inner peace. I had the outer warrior still, and even, you know, taking martial arts and doing all that shit, I was seeing like, you know, like people who were like deadly and lethal were also had this calm center. And I'm like, it's about, you know, fluctuating between those two. And then, you know, Prabhupada used to say, you could be hard as a lightning bolt, but soft as a rose at the same time. Like,
love that.
And just being around fighters my whole life. I mean, I think it was Joe Frazier that said one of the most peaceful rooms is a room full of fighters.
I would agree with that. I'd be.
Know, the posers got to run their mouth and be, you know, loudmouths. You know, empty barrels make the most noise. You know, so like.
Yeah, it's never the people that know how to fight that are really out there like screaming at the top of their lungs.
I know some lethal motherfuckers. My boy fought for the Muay Thai World Championship. He's been in the SEALs for 20 years.
Jeez.
He's getting ready to retire. He was in that movie Act of Valor.
Wow.
And you meet this man, and he is the most humble, respectful person you'll ever meet in your life.
Well, because they know what the ramifications of violence really are, right?
Exactly.
Like if you punch a motherfucker in his face, like, and he gets back up, not going to be very happy that you hit him, you know? Yeah. And I don't know if anyone listening hasn't been punched in the face, but getting punched in the face doesn't feel great, you know, when it's happening to you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
oh, I've been hit, I've been cracked. I got, you know, but I'm just saying, like, and then even when I was a brahmachari, I was a celibate monk for 2 years in Hawaii. Every day when I hit like 10 o'clock in the morning, I'd be up at 2. I went and trained in martial arts for 2 hours with this guy who was like a lethal black dude who was a lethal martial artist.
How did you stop yourself from jerking off? That would really be a big problem for me.
Well, that's why, see, even if you don't, celibate means you don't jerk off. And let me just show you the science of the Kundalini. What happens is if you don't control yourself and your senses, right? if you're checking out women, and I'm in Waikiki Beach handing out books.
Yeah, we live in Miami. It might be kind of tough down here for us. I have to wear a neck brace.
And chicks is walking around with bathing suits. But see, if you meditate on that and you don't control your senses, then you're gonna have sex dreams, and you're gonna lose your chi at night.
Was it difficult for you at first to kind of break that habit?
Man,
because I feel like you were in that world of like more sex, more anything.
Yeah,
you know,
I was never a hoe like that. Like when I went on the road, it wasn't like bang as many chicks. The sex, drugs, and rock and roll shit, them motherfuckers don't last.
Yeah,
like, trust me on that.
Talk to Tommy Lee.
Their dicks are falling off. They got diseases or fucking.
Fuck that shit.
It's. You don't want
I
never did that. And even when I was going out on playing gigs in 81, I always had a girlfriend. But when you practice the philosophy, you restrict your senses, you control your mind, you control your intelligence, and you practice your sadhana practice every single day. You stay disciplined as fuck. It's very easy. And the only way what's the biggest enjoyment in the material world? Sex life, right? So how do you give that up completely?
Nothing feels better,
right?
Well, you have to get the higher taste. And if you don't get the higher taste from spirituality and you try to do it artificially, then you're a poser. It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to give this a shot, and I'm going to do everything they're telling me to do. Just like in the military, just like in lockup. I'm going to apply everything they're telling me to do. That's science. You have a formula, you apply it, you get a result. And the result that I got was that I just became, free from a lot of anger and like material desires. I just was like really spiritualizing my life, and I needed to do that at that time because I still was harboring a lot of crazy shit.
So what do you say that, like you said, applying everything of, I got locked up, I'm going to apply what I need to do to get out. In the military, apply what they're telling me to do. What do you say that going through that hardship and going through those experiences set you up to be able to go through that application being a monk?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I really felt like whoever the controller, Krishna, God, the universe, was laying out a breadcrumb trail for me. Like everything was happening. I was like, yo, everything led to another thing, to another thing. And even I had this desire to play music again. So I spent a year in Hawaii, and then I came back to New York. And then at the end of 83, I ended up leaving the temple to go back and do the Cro-Mags. And I lived in burnt out buildings in Alphabet City with gang members coming in trying to take our place with guns and shit and fighting them off and taking fire hydrant showers in the middle of wintertime.
Wow. And
living in a building with no water, no electricity, no windows. Getting on my bike at 9 o'clock in the morning to be a bike messenger for 8 hours a day to pay for rehearsals. And that's how the fitness really started. When the springtime rolled around, I was all these guys, Nelson Vales, who made it to the Olympics in 84 for track pursuit. He was a bike messenger in New York. So you're seeing all these fit fucking dudes. So I'm riding 40 miles a day. And then they say, hey, we do a park ride at night. It's like a crit, 4 laps in the park. So then I started training after work, and then I was running and playing ball. And then I loved swimming all the time. I didn't compete, but I would go out to the ocean and just fucking disappear for like hours at a time. I was always a water guy because I almost drowned as a kid. I got stuck behind the ladder of a pool and nobody was around, and I almost died. Man. So I knew I had to tackle that and face that fear, which I say fear is false emotion appearing real. And I did that by becoming a fucking elite swimmer. I did a 54-minute swim on an Ironman. That's my PR.
That's incredible.
That's 2.4 miles. So, I mean, I was a rescue swimmer out at sea on my ship. you know,
dude, what have you not done?
you know,
and literally in such a short time frame. Like, how old were you? All this you've just talked to, like you said, you're 18, 19. How many 18, 19-year-olds have gone through?
Yeah.
I mean, but
well, you know,
it's got to be the resiliency, right? Like,
it molds you.
Oh, yeah,
all
the
that shit that you went
resiliency is
through.
the quality. I talk about that in my book, The PMA Effect, Positive Mental Attitude. I say, yo, if you don't have that resiliency to bounce back from adversity,
Boom.
For instance, I'm going to tell you a story, right? The only Ironman I ever DNF'd was Florida. It means did not finish. And because a freak system rolled in Panama City Beach.
Yeah, fucking Panama City Beach.
The Redneck Riviera.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it.
It's like you show up race week, it's all the fittest motherfuckers. 2 days afterwards, it's meth heads.
Back to trailers. Back to the trailer park. Yeah.
No, but what happened was this freak system rolled in. It was 38 degrees, 30 to 40 mile an hour winds. It was freezing. They canceled the swim. It was like 6 foot seas. I'm standing there in my wetsuit. I'm like, I'm getting in the water. I don't give a fuck. I'm here to do an Ironman. They put the red flag in the beach. So then it was just a bike and a swim, a bike and a run, 112 miles, and then a 26.2 mile marathon. I was freezing on the bike because I only had short sleeve compression suit. I had to put plastic bags inside to keep the wind off of me. I got the 112 done. And then the temperature started dropping and we're right on the water and it's getting dark. And I said, should I go back to my hotel, which is 3 blocks away, and get a sweatshirt and some long pants? And I said, nah, I'm going to warm up. I got this. I got a little over half into the marathon, 13, 14 miles in, and my body shut down. I had hypothermia.
Wow.
I had to go into the porta potty to warm up. I was throwing up, and the fucking medical team, the officials saw me on the cart. They're like, that's it. We got it. You know, they wanted to drive me back to the medical tent. I said, nah, I'll walk. So then the next day, my boy was deployed in the SEALs in Iraq. My friend I was telling you about, and he's an athlete too. And he's like, how'd the race go? On email, I said, hey, I fucking DNF'd. Like, you know, it got cold. I didn't have, and he just chewed into me. He's like, you didn't prepare. If you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. I'm a team leader. If I take my team out and I don't have the right ammo and the right gear, I'm putting lives at stake. Everything's about the preparation.
100%.
Right? And he said, you have to be resilient. You don't let this failure define you. He goes, you get right back up on the horse. You keep the PMA. And they sent me a link when I got home. I had 2 weeks and I went down and did Cozumel Ironman, and I did the fastest Ironman I've done yet to this day.
Wow.
What was your time on that?
It was like 11 something.
Incredible. That's unreal.
What years was this? What year did you do your first Ironman?
2012.
Was your first one?
Yeah, I was 50. When I turned 50, I did my first Ironman.
Wow. And how many have you done since 2012?
12, and a bunch of Olympics,
Jesus.
and I did a half Ironman. We did a documentary around it called Ironman, the movie. It's on YouTube. But I raced that with 3 hernias, man.
What?
I got them repaired right after that race, but I did that half Ironman. I raced for 2 years with umbilical hernia and then 2 in the groin.
I had one in the groin as a child. I
had to hold that motherfucker in by hand on the run. It was popping out. And
That's no joke. That's no joke.
It's you know, my doctor told me, if you go down and do this race, you could die because you know.
You're like, yeah, fuck it. I've been stabbed 100 times. Yeah. I'm good. Die.
Yeah.
I'll fucking run through some fire. Right. I'll be fine. Yeah, hit me over the head with a bottle. It doesn't matter.
You know, that's the whole thing is you got to have the resiliency. I didn't, you know, when I was locked up, the thing about Spofford's like Rikers Island back then for 21 and under. So everybody walked around the yard, the chow hall, all that shit with, you know, thinking they're the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. but I was in an intermediate wing. So the A wing, I believe, was the 18 to 21, and then I was in B3, it's intermediate. So we had 15 to 17-year-olds or whatever. And when them cell doors closed at night, you heard everybody crying. And I was one of the ones crying because it wasn't that I was scared. I didn't know where my life was going. And I just wondered, I just said, what the fuck? Had a conversation with God, like, yo, what the fuck are you putting me all this through? I was abused, like severely abused in a foster home. I didn't even find out till I was 40 that my father raped my mother after she left him. That's how I came into the world, out of a brutal rape of my mother, and she decided not to terminate the pregnancy.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And it's been just one thing after another, after another, after another. But now I just did some press like last year, and the person asked me, would you change anything if you could? I said, I wouldn't change one fucking thing. Even my relapse from 88 to 90 into crack and pills and all that shit, it was all meant to teach me valuable lessons. And now I'm able to pay that forward by the work that I'm doing out there, coaching. And I go speak at lockups. I go to fucking gang high schools.
How's that experience for you? Like going and now,
oh, it's amazing.
Being on the other side of it, being able to, hopefully
It's
at least
amazing.
pull a couple people out, a couple kids out.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, somebody just hit me the other day because I posted that I spoke somewhere. He's like, yo, I was one of the kids, and that had such a great impact on my life, hearing you come up there and tell what the hell you went through and what you've been able to do. I just did this documentary, it should be out this year, called 30 to Life, with Paul de Gelder, the Special Forces Australian guy. He got his arm and leg taken by the bull shark.
Wow.
He wrote a book called No Time for Fear. Bad motherfucker, dude. And he was that's like Australia's version of the SEAL teams, like clearance divers. Mm-hmm. They're parachuters. They do combat missions, all this crazy shit. And so I teamed up with him and Kip Anderson, who did What the Health and Cowspiracy. And I had this idea. I said, hey, this is what changed my life. Like, let's put this to the test with inmates that are released from prison to stop them from going back to prison. So, because the recidivism rate in California, I think, after you do over 10 years, it's like 85% or some, like they have the statistics in the movie, but it's insane how many people get violated or do more crime. So we took these 12 inmates and worked with them, and it's fucking such an incredible emotional thing to work with these men. And the fact that nobody ever gave them a chance, like I'm friends with all of them. They came to our show at the Roxy in LA like a couple years, like last year. And like all these big fucking, like real dudes, they went to gladiator school. It was like 20 years and above, I think there was only one guy that did 10 years, and everybody else was lifers, man. Fucking in the shoe, Pelican Bay, fucking Chino, which is gladiator school.
Oh, yeah.
Like real shit, like these guys, you don't know the world these guys come from.
Yeah, they're not breaking into cars and taking a Twix.
It's life and death. Yeah. And they came from gangs and all bad circumstances, but we gave them an opportunity to turn their life around, and they did. So Incredible. That movie's coming out, and it's something
we definitely
that I'm
watch
passionate about.
What's the name again?
30 to Life.
All right, we'll definitely be. Well, let us know when.
The number 30 to Life. Yeah.
Let us know when that comes out. We'll promote the hell out of that.
Absolutely,
we'll check it out,
man.
everything. And it's just something when you give someone else just a little bit of hope, right? A little bit of belief in themselves, or understanding that it's okay if not everything goes right, but it's about that constant work that really is what makes life meaning so powerful.
Yeah, it's the hope, to give somebody hope. And even when I spoke at Goshen Annex, these guys were going to do 10-year bids. So how do you give them a little bit of hope? How, the same what was given to me by the Lifers group. These guys were never getting out. And I thought about that the other day. I said, Jesus Christ. I went there in the fucking 70s. That's like 40-something years ago. These guys are 60 and 70 years old and still in prison.
Wow.
Like, imagine that. So they're never getting out of prison. So if they do something to help somebody else, it's because they wanted to.
Yeah.
They didn't, now they call it New Jersey State Prison, but it was called Rawway. They didn't get any perks for fucking doing what they did. They did it because they really wanted to help the next generation to not make the mistakes they did.
It's amazing. It's truly, truly amazing. And I think it's very inspiring to see what you're doing, what you've been putting together, obviously your life story to where it's led you to lead such a healthy, fruitful, giving back life to the youth where they can learn from your stories and people's mistakes and realize there's so much more out there and things can be fixed before things get worse. And I think that's truly amazing. So I want to ask you, since you told us you got the movie coming out, you're doing all this other awesome stuff with the youth. Obviously you're visiting different prisoners. You're helping them out. When is your next race? What's your next biggest project besides the movie?
Yeah.
And when can we expect some of these things to come out or see you participate in?
Well, I finished 2 books. So I used the pandemic time. Like I said, if you didn't get your shit done during this, you either it's not that you had a lack of time, you had a lack of discipline.
100%.
So what I did during the pandemic was, instead of getting up at 6 o'clock, I got up at 4:30. I got writing done every day. There was no gyms open. There was nothing. I had to fucking work out. I did my writing. I got 2 books done. And I'm working on a screenplay. And I got hired to write a TV show. I can't really talk about it yet, but it's in the works. It's going to be some real deal shit. And I also have Ironman Lake Placid coming up in July, and then Ironman Maryland in September.
Quick turnaround.
And I got a new album that I'm dropping this year with my band Blood Clot, members of Cro-Mags, Quicksand, Glassjaw, and this other band Madball, and the drummer.
Dude.
Incredible. You're an absolute savage, man. You got me inspired. You got me hyped. I'm ready to fucking run through a wall and get some shit done now after hearing all of that.
Did I lose you?
No. We're good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my teacher Prabhupada always said example is better than precept. And the one thing that you see a lot of people doing is talking shit and like, I'm going to do this. I just do my shit. And then when it happens or whatever, then I'm like, hey man, and I always say anybody could do this if you apply yourself.
That's right.
People would be like, I could never do an Ironman. I said, did you ever try?
Nope.
My first Ironman was 2012, and the drummer who booked the band for the Cro-Mags booked us a huge festival the night before, thousands of people. We headlined in Philly, and that was the night before the race. And I was like, he mixed up. So I couldn't cancel the race, and I couldn't cancel the show. So my brother drove me to Philly. I played the sold-out show, and I was on stage. I go, everybody asked me if I'm going to take it easy tonight because I got an Ironman in the morning. And I said, fuck no. And we just killed it. Woo. And if you look at them old Cro-Mag shows from like I'm going to
YouTube a couple of them after this for sure.
It was, put in This Is Hardcore Cro-Mags and you'll see what the fuck, we lay that shit down. It's like a workout for me to be on stage for an hour. And then my brother drove me back. I got in the shower and I went to the swim start. I had a broken bone in my foot. Jesus. It was 96 degrees that day, humidity. and I fucking banged it out. I got it done.
Savage.
You're an incredible human being, John. I'm super inspired.
You know what?
I think a lot of people
like
will
I
be.
said, nothing special. Anybody could do it. You know, when you want something bad enough, like I always tell people, we have to stay goal oriented. Like right now, I'm working on this. I'm rewriting the adaptation of the first year I spent on the streets in 1977. So like, if I say, how the fuck am I going to fill 110 pages, whatever, of a screenplay, it's never going to happen. So you break that shit down. You compartmentalize it into different sections and then scenes, and then you break the scene. You break it into acts and scenes and beats of behavior. So it's like you're constantly breaking shit down to make it manageable.
The next you know it, boom.
Yeah, that's the type of shit I teach, you know, with my coaching, you know.
Incredible.
But, you know, it's like I've been through all this crazy shit, so I know what's going to happen if I ever touch a sip of alcohol or a drug or take a hit off of a joint. I'm not one of those guys. I'm the guy that, like, has to snort the whole bag of coke and then rob somebody else's so I can freebase.
I got a couple of friends like that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, bringing up Miami, you know, the first time I ever freebased, I talk about it in the book.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to read
I went down there in 1988, right? And I was with this dude, a Cuban, and we stayed at his brother's house.
That's my type.
Yeah. Oh, he was, dude. That shit that was going on down there, forget it. So his brother comes in with a fucking bag, a backpack with 2 fucking kilos of blow. And like goes in the kitchen and starts, you know, making rocks out of fucking baking soda and in the microwave.
Cooking it up.
And I started freebasing.
Jesus Christ. Incredible,
and
man.
We went for like the whole night. And then everybody started bugging out, and he split. So the next night I'm falling asleep, and I was staying in one of the extra bedrooms, and I hear this car pull up, and then I hear the doors open, and it was right before sunrise, and I'm laying there, and then I hear the bolts of 2 AR-15s, and then they emptied both clips. They did a walk around the house. Bah, 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 fucking furniture exploding. Waterbed I was in exploded. I rolled off onto the floor. They emptied both clips walking around the house and then got back in the car and split. Wow. Turns out the dude I went down there with, the Cuban, his brother that came in with the 2 ounces, stole it from cocaine cowboy type people, and that was Jesus Christ. Coming to fucking kill him.
Jesus. Well, John, I think that we could talk. I think that we could talk for.
We need to do another podcast.
Yeah, I know. We gotta have you back on. We gotta have you back down here in Miami. Talk about more of this
live
stuff.
in Miami.
But you know what? Now I chant, and you know, that's the saying, chant and be happy, man. So.
Man, I love that. Well, thank you again, John, for coming on. We really appreciate it. Let us know when all your stuff is dropping, and we'll make sure to promote it all. Yeah. Make sure you guys go check them out, all social media platforms. What's your handle so people can find you?
John Joseph Cromag on Instagram and JJ Cromag on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, one more time, thank you, John, for coming on. What an incredible person. What an incredible story.
I envy you guys being down there in the warm weather.
Well, come visit.
My friend owns the Love Life Cafe down there.
Okay, we'll have to go check it out.
Which is fucking banging. If anybody wants to eat some incredible plant-based food that tastes great and is good for you,
awesome.
Diego, my boy, is the chef there.
Perfect. We'll go holler at him.
We're going to definitely tell him, yo, John told us to come over.
John sent us.
You say my name, you get a free juice, motherfucker.
All right, perfect. Well,
I'm going to take you on that.
Just you guys, not everybody.
Yeah, you forget this is going out on the internet.
All right.
All right. Well, appreciate you, John. Thank you so much.
Peace out, man.
Much
God
love,
bless
brother. Stay in touch.
And stay in the fight, baby. That's
yes, sir. Until next time, everybody.
All right. Later, big man.